topic being the algorithms of social media. Are they working for you? And we have an expert, a young expert. It's that way. Always forgets. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. The lovely Olivia McIver from Soda Digital. Welcome to a Wednesday Live.
Thanks. It's good to be back. The last one was lots of fun, so I thought I'd come back and do it again.
Excellent, excellent. You've got lots of value. You've got lots of information in your head dealing with social media content, digital marketing, and you've recently celebrated an anniversary in business.
Yeah, I am now in my 4th year in business, which feels good. So
And and how old are you?
I am 25 now.
Wow, that is just quite incredible. And you were recently nominated for an amazing award again through the Newmarket Business Association.
Yeah, I was up for Young Business Person of the Year for the 2nd year in a row. I came second for the 2nd year in a row, which is all good. It's a really fun night anyway, and it is a good opportunity to sort of test yourself for the next year and see how much you've grown. I definitely came close this time, but the girl that took it out is really, really cool. And I actually connected with her on LinkedIn yesterday, and we'll be catching up for a coffee.
Excellent. Third
Yeah.
time lucky for 2023. Let's dive into it. If you have any questions pertaining to what Olivia is talking about today, to do with algorithms, please put a comment in the comment section wherever you're watching this, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, wherever it might be. But let's dive into it. We're going to focus on 4 social media channels. Take it away, Olivia McIver.
Okay, so I'm going to try and dive deep enough into the algorithms that it makes sense and you've got some key takeaways. But I think the word algorithm can be quite a scary one. It doesn't need to be. The method in which it works is pretty similar across platforms, but there's obviously different algorithms and different formulas per platform. So without diving too deep into what an algorithm is, in essence, algorithms define what we as consumers see in our news feeds. So I always like to use that as a preface because I think it's quite interesting when you look at algorithms by way of like consumer versus as a business. They're very different. As a consumer, we don't really care much about an algorithm because it actually works in our favor. It gives us content that we want to see, products we want to see, or campaigns we want to see, for the most part anyway. But as a marketer, algorithms are definitely the things that can keep us up at night. And as a business owner, it's just something that can cause a lot of confusion and a lot of stress when trying to put together a social media strategy. So I thought I would cover the key platforms at the moment. I'll finish off with TikTok because it's everyone's burning platform, and then hopefully you get some key takeaways on what the current algorithms are and how you can make them work for you.
Excellent, excellent. So, which platform are we starting with first?
We'll start off with the beast that is Facebook. So I would say that Facebook has one of the most algorithm heavy feeds, and they have done for a wee while. Now, Facebook ads are presented to you, and content actually are presented to you based on what Facebook sees as relevant to the user. So, like most channels, the option for a user to opt in for a chronological feed is now available, and that's quite a big shift in feeds. But in saying that, not many users have actually made that switch to a chronological feed again. As a marketer, Facebook can be the most confusing algorithm to crack, but there are a few things we do know for sure, and I'm going to cover those off. The first one being a pretty basic one, but an important one, is timing your post to perfection. So Facebook is still one of the most saturated platforms. Therefore, there is a lot of content going out and there's a lot of users using it regularly. So this means making sure that you are looking into your insights and making sure when your users are online so that you can time that post perfectly. And that also plays into another point, which basically if you get engagement in a post, the algorithms will favor that. So you want your post to be getting the best shot, and that's where the timing plays into. Now, the second thing, and John will like this, is making video the cornerstone of your content strategy. Now, there has been a takeover of short form content across all social channels. Facebook is now following suit, and they were the last to follow suit. So it has been reported that Facebook will feature stories and reels at the top of your feed, and then with an algorithm heavy feed to follow. So reels and stories and video will have prime real estate on Facebook. So it's really important that you're including this in your strategy if Facebook is a primary platform for you. Another thing is prioritizing photos and tags over external links. So Facebook is a selfish beast. They always have been. So making sure that you are keeping people within the platform rather than sending them off is best practice. That can't always be the case if you need people to go to like an event or to purchase, then you can do so. But for the most part, if you're trying to educate and create engagement, try keep people on that platform or use other functions such as like event pages, and Facebook will be really happy with you. So I would say with Facebook, it is one of those platforms that is becoming harder and harder to win on. But I think the biggest power play still is campaigns and ads. In terms of targeting capability, it's still unmatched. There is so much you can do with it, and there's a lot of features within the lead gen component that are really, really good. For example, on Facebook lead forms and messenger campaigns. So I would say that is your power play if you're looking to generate leads on the platform. The other power play, which is an interesting one and has risen a lot over the last couple of years, is groups and community groups. And it's quite interesting because John and I are both in BNI together, and you'll hear it quite often coming up in the reps and referrals round, where people say, hey, thanks for mentioning me on a community group on Facebook. And people get good business from it. Not only that, as an example, if you were, say, a mechanic and you rely on local business, being present in your local community group is a really, really strong play for you. And I see it a lot for things like mortgage advisors. They're looking for a local advisor and people get recommended. So I think there is a lot of strength in sort of focusing on groups from an organic standpoint without having to spend too much budget and getting a lot back.
Excellent. Power plays, messenger, and community groups.
Yes.
Got that. I love that power play. So that was Facebook, the beast of Facebook. Which social media channel are we looking at next?
So I think it's only fair to flow onto Instagram from here, since they do tie in, although still very different platforms in terms of how they're interacted with. So Instagram's algorithm has one goal, and that is to make you stay on the app longer by delivering content that you find relevant and interesting. So different to Facebook, where Instagram's primary focus is to keep you scrolling. So Instagram is one of those platforms that are super fast paced and it's changing all the time. So I'm going to give you a rundown on what is happening now, but I'm just going to preface it with the idea that this could change in a week's time because it is really fast paced. So as a marketer, there is a simple way to improve your ranking with the Instagram algorithm. And the best thing you can do is just to drive as many interactions as possible. So by interactions, I mean like likes, comments, shares, messages. Any way someone can interact with you is the goal here, and that'll then increase your reach of your post and your brand. So in terms of what's happening at the moment, Reels are inevitable. This has come off the back of TikTok. So Reels at the moment get twice as much reach at a minimum in the Instagram Explore page, therefore offering you a lot organically. Now, as we know, Facebook is hard to win on organically. Instagram was starting to go that way. So with the introduction of Reels, you've got a real opportunity. And again, John will be happy because this is video based. Yeah, so Reels will be a major growth tactic for you, for your brand. The other side of that is also using stories to maximize engagement. So if we come back to how we win, it's all about engagement, and stories is actually the easiest way to do this because it doesn't have to be so polished, it doesn't have to be so planned. In fact, most people enjoy watching Instagram stories when you're just on the go, you are sharing what's happening in your day. It's really uncut and they're really well received. Plus, they've got prime real estate at the top of your feed. And what I would encourage you to do with stories is try use them daily, if not 3-4 times a week, but use all the features that come with a story. And they're there for a reason. So for example, you've got polls, similar to how you have them on LinkedIn, but on a story, you've got question boxes, there's little like toggles that you can get a user to engage with. Anything that can encourage engagement will have the algorithm swaying in your favor. And again, it's the easiest way to do so if you struggle with creating a lot of content. Another interesting point is try not to get too cryptic with your captions. Now, I know we all try approach Instagram with a bit of a cool girl aesthetic, but Instagram's algorithms are getting better at identifying what an image or video is about based on keywords or in the written content. So therefore, making sure that what's in your caption is relevant to the post, therefore it can categorize it for you and push it to the right kind of audience.
And just in terms of language, captions in Instagram, in LinkedIn is a post copy, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just
cool. I'll just get Joe to put the blind down for me. It's getting a bit sunny in here. And then the other thing I would look out for from an algorithm standpoint is just being aware of violations that will penalize your page. Instagram has become quite hypersensitive, especially with a lot of movements that are happening at the moment and a lot that's going on in the world. So things like if you're talking about something topical, just being really careful how you're talking about that and how you're approaching that, and making sure there is trigger warnings if need be. There are also penalties if you are using watermarks from other channels. So an example of this is TikTok. A lot of people think they can just create a video on TikTok and then repost it to Instagram, but you will get penalized if that TikTok watermark is on there. And then things like video and image quality. Interestingly, you will now get penalized if your image quality is really low. So just keeping an eye on something like that. And then there actually is a newer introduction, and that's in originality. So making sure your content is original. And that comes down to like planning out your content and making sure you've got a proper strategy there.
Well, I guess my key takeaways that I'm taking from Facebook and Instagram algorithms is short form video is leading the way.
Yes. And I just want to make a note as a key takeaway or as a bit of a power play for Instagram is if you're going to commit to Instagram as a platform, be prepared to commit time and resources to make it work for you. So obviously the ranking signals include interest and engagement. It also includes frequency and then usage from your end. So if you're not engaging in your feed, similar to LinkedIn, then you're not going to get much back. It's all about engagement in and engagement out. And they'll also rank you based on how you are using key features such as reels, guides, stories, and highlights. So in essence, it is a very resource heavy platform, but it can work really, really well for you if you're going to commit to it.
Some power plays in Instagram. If you are just joining us, we are with Olivia McIver from Soda Digital, and we're talking algorithms across the 4 social media channels. We've covered off Facebook and Instagram, and still to come LinkedIn and TikTok. LinkedIn next, Liv?
Yeah, LinkedIn next. So similar to the other social networks, LinkedIn relies heavily on certain tells and indicators to categorize its content and who it's relevant to. In saying that, what I find is that LinkedIn has a really good organic functionality in comparison to Facebook and Instagram. You can still get a lot of reach for no budget, which is awesome. Now, we like to look at LinkedIn as one big conversation, and this is a really good way to understand how to sway the algorithms. So things like, do your posts open up conversation? If you want an example on this, go see John Mabry's page. He's really good at open-ended questions and making sure he continues the conversation in his comments. So yeah, do your posts open up conversation? Are you actively engaging in conversation in both your feed, comment section, and your inbox? This is a really important piece. And are your conversations or content of relevance? And I think there's a huge relevancy piece at the moment with LinkedIn. So just look at it as a big conversation and really take time to engage in conversation and open up conversation. And I think you'll find that'll work quite well for you as just an overarching high level strategy. Now, LinkedIn's feeds have come a long way, but users are struggling to find their feet when it comes to content types because there are quite a few content types out there at the moment. So I thought I'd do a few pointers around what's working in the algorithm and how to approach it. Good? Okay, cool. So LinkedIn actually factors in time spent on a post. So you probably see in your feed now, there are a lot of lengthy posts, and that probably plays into that, and you'll see why you see a lot of those posts now. So if you're spending a bit of time on the post reading it, then it will favor you. So the algorithms are also amplifying conversations around sensitive topics. So things like mental health and well-being. And this came off the back of, in COVID, there was a lot of conversation happening on topical points. And so they've then favored that. But what I want to mention on that point is LinkedIn will actually also downrank posts that are purely aimed at generating engagement with no value. So you've got like the relevant topical piece, but there's also the relevancy piece and the value piece, which is really, really important. So don't be afraid to get the paragraphs flowing if you want to, but I would say just speak up on conversations that are important to you, and then posting about a topic when it's not aligned with your values or if it's not important to you is definitely not best practice. So stay true, stay you, talk about things that are important, but don't get caught up in the LinkedIn conversations if they're not important to you. Then another point I want to make is that, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I think it's really important, is remembering that LinkedIn is a people platform. So LinkedIn is predominantly used by people rather than companies. From a business standpoint, which is interesting because if you've got a company on Facebook and Instagram, you've very clearly got a company page, but there is a lot of strength in using your personal profile on LinkedIn. And often the personal profile drives your growth, and then you kind of cross promote or link it into your company profile. So if it is a people platform, don't get too caught up in posting a whole bunch about what your company is doing. And like we're all guilty of it. You create a piece of content and you put it on Facebook and Instagram, and then you just whack it on your personal LinkedIn as well. That's okay, but I'd say balance it out with faces and personal posts, and that's going to be really important because we're trying to drive connection here, and we're trying to drive conversation like we touched on. Now, I did a bit of looking into what content pieces are currently working really well on LinkedIn, and the top ranking content pieces are video and image. Yeah, John, you're in business here, but video and image paired with those lengthier captions like we talked about. And then what's quite interesting as well is just single caption or text posts are actually doing really, really well. And we haven't seen that for a while on any social platforms. So if you don't have a photo to pair, it's not the end of the world as long as you've got a really strong piece with a really strong opening line. That will work as well. And the other content piece that's actually working really well is LinkedIn articles. And I was doing a bit of searching around polls because a lot of people are using polls at the moment. Actually, what's advised at the moment is to reduce your number of polls, potentially post one a week, and focus more on that heavier content, e.g. video, text, or imagery. So yeah, that should give you some insight into what's working at the moment.
So that is LinkedIn. We do have one question from Dennis. Do you want to save the questions till the end? If you do have a question, please put it in the chat. Any question to do with the algorithm across the 4 channels we're talking: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, which is coming up now. Let's save that question to the end. Hopefully that answered your question, Dennis, to do with the LinkedIn algorithm, but we'll come back to that towards the end. The one that's everybody's talking about, and it's no longer the channel for dancing, I believe, is TikTok.
Yes, the new kid on the block, TikTok. The platform that has become a bit of a nightmare for marketers and businesses. I think we can all relate to that if you are a business or if you are in the marketing space. It is a tricky one to try and approach, especially for us from a management side. But as the platform develops, so do softwares and things like that for us to help manage it. So TikTok has quite literally redefined social media across the board, and that is purely down to its use of short form content, which has been adopted by some of the bigger guys, being Facebook and Instagram. Aside from just the short form content, they've got really, really tight communities. And I think what their biggest power play is the easy stimulation for a user. So people refer to this as getting into a TikTok hole, where you can quite easily get into a deep scroll and then 2 hours has gone by and you don't even know. And it's very, very common. So that only tells me that their algorithms are bang on, because it keeps you keeps you around. Because the channel is still fairly new, algorithms can be a bit tricky to read and keep up with, but I can share what we know at the moment. And again, take it with a grain of salt because it could change in a week's time. The biggest thing is trends, right? So every marketer's nightmare is a big use of trends and uptake of trends on the platform. And it's quite interesting because TikTok is predominantly used by a consumer by way of consuming the content and posting. So for a consumer, a trend is quite easy to jump on. For a business, unless you've got quite a flexible resource, it can be a bit tricky. But brands looking to increase their reach of their TikTok videos should be using trending songs, hashtags, dances, and just like video types in general. So if you're going to use a platform, you need to be prepared to keep up with trends. I think one of the key ranking signals on TikTok at the moment is completion of a video. So because they're quite short, you want to be making sure that you are completing that video. I think they've gone up to 2 minutes now, but I would keep your videos between sort of anywhere between 40 seconds is probably prime time, because if you're trying to play the algorithm, ideally your user is finishing the whole video. What's also interesting is that the device and account settings have a big role to play here. I think a lot of questions I've got about TikTok is people asking me whether the platform is right for them. They assume that they're going to be reaching a whole lot of 16-year-olds in the States. But TikTok actually takes into account where you are based, so your country, your language, device type, and then it basically feeds you the content based on that. So if you are running a local strategy, it should actually work for you. So I hope that sort of debunks that myth for everyone. Another key piece is the niche, and I just want to touch on this a bit because TikTok has a huge sense of community, probably the biggest since the peak of YouTube. Like YouTube has got a lot of little communities. I know there's like a big makeup community and beauty community, plus a ton other. But TikTok has really taken the community aspect, and you'll see it under hashtags. It's how they work it. So there's like mum talk and like business talk. There's a lot of talks going on. And so if you're a brand that fits into a specific niche, I'd definitely consider giving TikTok a crack, because there is a huge community out there for you, and TikTok do a really good job at categorizing those communities and delivering it to the right people. So from an organic side, you don't actually need a lot of budget to win on TikTok. There are obviously ad capabilities that have rolled out recently, but I don't see a need for them just yet if you can still win a lot on TikTok and get reach that is 10 times what you'd get on Instagram.
Okay. Any more on TikTok?
I just want to say for TikTok, unfortunately, it is one of those platforms that'll have to be used as a consumer to understand what to post as a business. That's probably standard practice across the board, but for the most part, you can understand what a client or a customer might want to know from you on Facebook. But TikTok really is, you understand the trends by osmosis. So having a scroll every day is probably quite important to make sure you're up with the trends and what's happening. So because of this, you will need to allocate time to jump on your feed, and this will be critical to your success. What I would also recommend, and it's probably not the best thing as a marketer to recommend, but I would say don't over strategize it or overthink it. I think your best play is actually just jumping on the platform and giving it a crack and seeing what works. Because it's quite a new platform, there's no method or formula to what we know is going to work unless it's trend based. So rather than overthinking it and trying to curate a content strategy, I would just jump on and do it and see what works for you, and then use the data and make some decisions from there. In saying that though, it's so fast paced, you can't tell what's going to work one week versus the next. So your best option is just to do it.
Excellent. And of course, TikTok is video. So video is leading the way across all the social media channels. Look, I a bit of a shameless plug here, Liv. I have a workshop next week for creating shorter videos. I'm not really a creator on TikTok. I've posted a couple of things. I've mainly focused on LinkedIn and Facebook, but the premise is the same. It's like most business owners really struggle with what to say, And in this workshop, you're going to be creating 4 short, and that's under 30-second videos. So a bit of a shameless plug there for my little workshop next week. So to recap, we've gone through all the 4 channels. Do you want to do a key takeaway or a summary for each?
Yeah, I think I'll just touch on some key trends across the board. Again, short form content. It just seems to be taking over social media. So if you haven't adopted this as part of your social media strategy, I'm sorry to say it, but you will need to. Otherwise, you'll be spending a lot of budget to get your content out there. Another key takeaway is just understanding that an algorithm works for the platform. So the whole idea is to keep the consumer on the platform and to make sure that they are seeing what they want to be seeing based on what they engage with. So if you just take that approach as like a holistic approach, then it's not as hard to understand as you might think. And then I think across the board as well is picking your audience and making sure you're really clear on who that is, and then understanding where you're going to run your power plays and where you might just park. Social is a big beast. There are a lot of platforms, a lot of algorithm changes, a lot of moving parts and features. So I would genuinely pick 2 and do a good job at them rather than trying to overwhelm yourself and win at all of them, because yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into understanding what's going to work, and you have to obviously revise data. So yeah, don't try to do it all at once. From a TikTok side, I would recommend jumping on John's workshop. TikTok is one of those things you just got to put yourself out there and go for it. So having some of his videos on the go would be really good, and then you could pair them with some trending stuff as well. But it is a terrifying platform for a lot of people. So yeah, my biggest tip would just be like, give it a crack and then see how you go, and then make some decisions accordingly. But I think what's really important about TikTok is that it's unpolished. It doesn't have to look beautiful or perfect. The whole idea is that it's unpolished content and it's supposed to be on the go.
Excellent. A couple of questions, or one question particularly for you was to do with LinkedIn, and that was, although the very famous Michelle Raymond has been watching our live stream. Of course, she has written a book on LinkedIn company pages, so I guess she would know. But Janice Anismov has asked the question: does the LinkedIn algorithm behave differently for company pages or individual creators? What's your
I think Michelle summed it up pretty well, but I think there's ways that you can intertwine it, like adopting an organization-wide strategy is a really good play. So there's power in people on LinkedIn, and you can build up your company through your people. So say you've got a team of 10 and they are all plugging your company and mentioning your company, and they're all linked into that, then obviously your page has got a better chance of being seen. But I do think there's more strength in using a personal profile. As well as that, obviously company pages are encouraged to spend budget, as they all are across all platforms. So just take that into consideration as well. The algorithms are probably built a little bit differently in that way. Personal profiles, you can get a post out and organically it can go quite well. I'd imagine LinkedIn's agenda in the background is to get you to spend a little bit of budget. So yeah, just maybe take that into account.
excellent. You've done a lot of talking, Olivia.
I like talking.
You like talking. Exactly. Well, you like sharing all that information that you've garnered and gleaned from those many clients you've worked with across social content and, of course, ads. Thank you so much. If you are seeing this live stream in a replay, and if you have any question, please either tag myself, Olivia, certainly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and we will come back to you with your answer. Thank you so much again, Olivia. You have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. See you. If anyone has any questions, just shoot me a LinkedIn DM and we'll